Mets fans, I am amped up to get into our late night video here, that being Saturday, December 6, 2025, at the time this video first dropping, as we always do, breaking down the latest news and rumblings every single day throughout the course of the offseason. But today's an important discussion, because we're going to break down the two key pieces that a lot of Mets fans, including myself, want to see in Flushing, Queens for 2026. On one hand, we have the home run king there, that being Pete Alonso. On the other, as the back-to-back American League Cy Young Award winner in Tarek Skubal. And speaking of Skubal, we're going to begin today's discussion by breaking down the latest reporting, which makes it abundantly clear that Skubal's trade possibility is heating up by the second. So why exactly is there increased likelihood of the most coveted pitcher in baseball being dealt this offseason? We'll not only break that down, but we'll also get into how the New York Mets have done a tremendous job separating themselves from the rest of Major League Baseball to make a blockbuster trade for the coveted Southpaw actually come to fruition. From there, we'll talk about the Mets home run king and Pete Alonso, and not only on how his market is yet again for a second consecutive offseason shrinking. Believe it or not, that is in fact true. We'll get into why that is, where that reporting stems from, and ultimately how both Pete Alonso and the Boston Red Sox do appear to want each other. The great question, however, is to what degree? Who wants more than the other? Does Alonso want the Red Sox more than the Red Sox want him? Do the Red Sox want Alonso more than Alonso wants the Red Sox? That's what we're going to break down, all the key details on the latest for Alonso's market, where the Mets stand, and everything else in between, everybody. So all I ask is that you guys hit that like and subscribe on your way in, as it's a great way to support the platform. Let me know your initial thoughts, reactions, and analysis in the comments down below to all that we'll be breaking down in this one. And as always, shout out to our amazing sponsor at SeatGeek that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. Simply utilize my promo code WARDY10, that is WARDY10, link down below in the description. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. Because folks, whether it's for NFL tickets, NHL tickets, NBA tickets, concerts, comedies, you name it, our great friends at SeatGeek have you covered for all things on the ticketing front. WARDY10 for 10% off your next ticket purchase, link down below. And one more thing, everybody, of course, as many of you guys know, we have hit 36,000 subscribers, and as a further thank you for us hitting our latest milestone on the platform, we will be giving away a jersey to one lucky subscriber Monday, December 8th, and day 2 of our winter meeting live stream coverage to one lucky subscriber that we will randomly select in live chat. So make sure you guys chime in, as we'll be live starting Sunday night each of the next 3 to 4 days, covering all aspects of MLB winter meetings for multi-hour long live coverage. Don't miss out, everybody. We have so much fun doing this every single year, and I have a good feeling that not only will the Mets find themselves making moves, but Major League Baseball as a whole is going to be very busy on the hot stove front over the next week. So strap in, get yourself buckled up, and ready for the ride, which is our latest WardyNYM breakdown here, everybody. Now let's go ahead, and again, let me know your thoughts down below on all the topics we're going to break down, but let's go right ahead and begin our discussion today, not with the polar bear, but we're going to talk about, yes, one Tarek Skubal. And shout out to Just Baseball. For those that don't know Just Baseball, they do a very good job, not only with their pieces, but of course with their podcasts as well. And Buster Only of ESPN, who, if you guys have been a follower of the platform, no, I'm not overly infatuated with. However, I do understand that Buster is connected, and this is the time of year where you should probably take him more seriously than any point in the year, especially when it comes to in-season takes. That is where things go sour for him and fast. But off-season, it's a bit of a different discussion. And what do we see here? We see the following, and I quote, a highly ranked executive I talked to yesterday said, yeah, I think that they are going to trade him. Buster on Tarek Skubal on the Just Baseball show. Now, mind you, this comes like just a day or so after Buster had initially relayed out there on X and on the media that, yes, you know, the continued talks are happening for Tarek Skubal via trade. The jury's still out as to whether or not the Tigers are going to go ahead and trade their coveted back-to-back Cy Young Award winner, but it is clear that he has a big market, and every single team looking for every single team that's a top contender looking for an ace caliber starter to frontline their rotation is absolutely going to be in the mix for Skubal, as long as Detroit does not make it abundantly clear that they're saying no to any and all trades, the way that the Twins may appear to be doing that for guys like Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez, but we'll talk about that at the end of the show. I'm saving that for last, and for good reason. So let's get into a little bit more from Buster's remarks here, and I definitely want to hear your guys' opinions about this, as I'll be sharing mine as well. We'll break down more as to what this means for the New York Mets and their continued pursuit of star pitching this offseason.
What are you hearing on the Tarek Skubal front, if anything?
Person I talked to yesterday said, yeah, I think they are going to trade him. Because when you really get down to brass tacks on it, okay, if you're the Tigers, You're basically you're weighing the value of trying to compete in 1 year in 2026 with Skubal versus, oh my God, we might get 18 years of team control of prospects that you get. And from what I understand, the asking prices are incredibly high. Name the players who, if they change from one team to the next, would have the greatest impact, okay? Tarek Skubal might be at the top of the list, where if you are a 75-win team, let's say the Orioles go down the same route that they did with Corbin Burns, right? And they acquire a Scott Boras client who's under 1 year of team control. My God, that would, I mean, the Orioles prospects for 26 would change dramatically. And not every team is going to look at it that way and focus on 1 year, but that's what Tarek Skubal's value is. He could completely change the outlook for your team. And if that offer is there in front of the Tigers, do you take it? I just think if your focus is on value and putting your team in the best possible position, not only for 26, but going forward, you trade him now because you don't want to squander that value if he just walks away and all you get is draft pick compensation.
Something that you will rarely hear on this platform is myself, Tyler Ward, aka Wardy, fully agreeing with something that came out of Buster Olney's mouth. And I'm not just saying this because I want Skubal on the New York Mets. I would be saying this if the Mets still had no chance on Tarek Skubal, because common sense tells you if you are a more small market ran organization like the Detroit Tigers are, with a limited budget, with a limited expectation. When I say limited expectation, I mean that in the sense of exactly how much that they will get from their current core group. The jury's still out there as we head into 2026. A lot of great young guns, but still they, of course, failed to meet that expectation in postseason play in the way that they surprised the world and really blossomed in 2024 for a team that actually sold at the deadline, traded away at the time veteran pieces like former Mets legend Mark Hanna, Jack Flaherty, who ultimately won the World Series with his hometown favorite team, the Dodgers, that year, sadly. But again, the point stands. Tarek Skubal has an abundance amount of value. The Detroit Tigers are at a gap of over $300 million in extension talks. Like, what are we talking about here? Are they just going to go ahead and pull out their derriere out of nowhere? You know what, Tarek? We're going to give you the $400 million you're looking for as a Scott Boras client. No, it is not going to happen. I will be jaw-dropped if it happens. And trust me when I see that baseball continues to surprise me every single year that I cover it here on the platform, but the point still stands. Tarek Skubal has more value than any starter imaginable, even as a rental. He's coming off of another Cy Young Award season. 100 plus strikeouts just with his changeup. He sits 98 to a hundo consistently on the gun with his fastball. He consistently goes deep into ball games. He consistently gave you a K per nine of 11 strikeouts per nine to a walks per nine this past season of just over one. I mean, quite literally, if you had to make a player in a lab, or if you were playing MLB The Show trying to figure out how could I make the most dominant starter imaginable on the mound, you would make a profile early similar to Tarek Skubal. A dominant southpaw, a 6'4" plus frame. You know he's filled out. He's got the velo. He's got the moxie. He's got everything you possibly want on the mound. I don't need to continue to sell you guys on Skubal, but in case you haven't seen my previous Tarek conversations, I clearly have to. This man is simply jaw-droppingly good. And the fact that he alone had almost 7 wins per Fangraphs' wins above replacement this past year for WAR tells you how valuable and how instrumental he is to any team that would have the luxury of acquiring him. So again, why would the Tigers trade Skubal? Because you would get a dump truck haul in return. And how many teams out there can realistically give up a haul that's most appealing to a Tigers team that's not only looking for potentially some more hitting, but obviously looking for more pitching depth? They would love to replace Skubal in the world where they got a lot of controllable pitching in return. Cough, cough, the New York Mets farm that's literally ranked number 1 in baseball when evaluating their pitching department. No team in baseball is a better positioned club to make a blockbuster trade happen for any top talent this offseason than the New York Mets, specifically when looking at what the Tigers would be wanting, again, and controllable pitching. And yes, that means the Mets could in fact trade a lot of guys without even having Noah McLean considered in the conversation. McLean's locked down long-term when looking at team control. It would be counterintuitive for the Mets to trade for someone like Skubal Skubal with the purpose then to trade McClain in the process. So you give up one controllable ace upside pitcher for a rental when you still have to lock him down long term in order to make it happen. It just doesn't make sense. If the Mets traded for Tarik Skubal, you can kiss one of them, not both of Jonathan, Brandon Sproat goodbye. As much as that would pay me to see, I'm not losing sleep over it when you get the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner. I mean, like, are we really going to compare these things? If they're the same, the Mets may literally never get a starter as good as Skubal will get in the foreseeable future for who knows how long. You want to know the last time the Mets had a starter that was ace for them, that gave them 30 plus starts? We're going all the way back to the late 2010s with, yes, Jacob deGrom. Hasn't happened since 2019 or so. Yes, you had a great first year with Kodai Senga in 2023 with 29 starts, but he still didn't hit the technical 30 start plateau, nor was he someone that gave you credibility as a consistent ace for you because he's dealt with so much ailment each of the past 2 years. The point stands. The Mets, who have been in the desperate need of the market for an ace caliber upside starter, have one right in front of them, but the Tigers need to be willing to part ways with him. Because for the Tigers, what do they value more? Do they value either A, going into another win-now stage in 2026 between your youth movement and your veterans and hoping Skubal can be such a needle mover yet again that even though he's going to walk after the 2026 season, it doesn't matter because you win a championship with him? Give me a break. Does anyone really think that's going to happen right now? Again, I'll have to see it to believe it. What I do know in confidence is that if the Tigers trade Skubal now, they maximize his value. Mind you, before God forbid anything that could happen to him in a walk year, if Skubal deals with any injury next season, knock on wood, because I pray it doesn't happen, obviously. But say it does. He's in a walk year. It's really going to hurt his value, especially if, God forbid, he got hurt right before the trade deadline. Then you can't do anything with him. The Twins would have loved to trade Pablo Lopez at the trade deadline this past year. Why couldn't they? Because he went down with a significant injury right around that time. So this is a risk that teams take and ultimately can come back to backfire and bite them in the you-know-what when they do not maximize the return of players that they know are not returning. Skubal is not going to be a Detroit Tiger a year from now. And we also know that a year from now, we don't know when baseball will be starting again. There's this active negotiation that'll happen in the upcoming CBA from the players' union to the ownership, and they are not seeing anything in line at all. So lockout nearly feels inevitable at this point in time. We just don't know to what degree, for how long. A further adamancy by teams and by players to maximize deals now, whether it's in the trade market or especially the free agent market, as we'll talk more about the polar bear here shortly. But when we look at Tarik Skubal, when we look at his makeup, when you see not just his stats down below, when you see how he carries himself, he has all the makings of being exactly what the Mets are looking for in this market. He curb stomps, pardon my French, guys like Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, Mitch Keller, Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera. No one even touches this guy. He's that much better. There are levels to the eliteness in baseball. And Tarik Skubal, you know, when you guys do those tier rankings, when you have S and then A, and then, you know, we have ourselves B tier, then we have ourselves C, D, etc. He's all the way in S tier. He's all the way at the top. Tarik Skubal is the guy that any top contending team that can give up quality assets for will be in the market for. So, for the Tigers, how serious are they about trading him? And this really comes down to not only their willingness, but ultimately how absurd of an offer do they get for a rental pitcher? Because I know you're saying to yourself, Wardy, Skubal's amazing, he's great, but I do not want to sacrifice the farm for someone who's not a guarantee beyond one season. I don't blame you guys for feeling that way, but I respectfully disagree. And I will keep my foot down on that, and here's why. How much longer do we need a prospect hug to finally get it through our thick skulls that this team is in a win-now stage, okay? They're focused on short and long-term success. The Mets have done a tremendous job with David Stearns and Chris Gross and Andy Green when looking at the drafting, the player development, and everything else in between over the past 2 years when evaluating the draft. They've done a great job. And my confidence is so bullish in the front of the Mets continuing to draft well under Stearns and have great player development, as the Mets were arguably the best overall farm in baseball this past year. When looking at success, they had the second most wins out of any organization in baseball from the low A all the way up to triple A. So the Mets are in great hands as to what their farm future is. So much so that even in a role where they say traded Jet Williams, one of, if not both, of Brandon Sproat, Jonathan in that conversation. You know, you think of a Jacob Reimer. You think of one of those in the Mark Vientos, Luis Angel Acuña, Ryan Mauricio types. If Brett Beatty wants to be had, okay, then you find a viable third base replacement for him, and you don't lose sleep over it. Why? What is one thing that Steve Cohen can and will confidently do that will shut the noise up fast on the notion that, oh my God, he's a Scott Boras client. There's no chance that they could extend him. Yeah, maybe if you lived under a rock, maybe if you haven't paid attention since what's happened since Steve Cohen became owner. What has happened since Steve Cohen has become owner? Oh yeah, a couple things, important things. Don't forget this. One, Steve Cohen has spent more money on Scott Boras clients than any other ownership group in baseball since he became majority owner of the Mets in December of 2020, entering the 2021 season. Secondly, and this cannot be understated, the last time the New York Mets traded for a rental star player was Francisco Lindor. And what did the Mets do with Francisco Lindor at the time of a Mets team that was filled with turmoil, had nothing of a bright future, did not have a deep farm? They managed to sway Francisco Lindor so well to ink him to over $300 million decade-long extension the final hour before opening day of the 2021 season against those Nationals. In order for that to happen, Steve Cohen had to do a great sell job on what the future would look like. And I think he has lived up to a lot of that with, of course, an asterisk being the Mets winning a championship in the first 3 to 5 years. That hasn't happened. Tarek Skubal makes that happen. And most importantly, from Scott Boras' point of view, what is the one ownership group that he should entrust while building a greater relationship with, which I know he already has a great one with? It's Steve Cohen and the New York Mets. Does he realistically think he's going to get a bigger bag from a top contending team not named the Mets for Tarek Skubal long term? Sure, go ahead. Go the Dodgers and do another, how many? $300 million deferred? Go ahead. But if you want immediate money and deferred money, look no farther than the New York Mets and what they have to offer. There is not a chance, in part of my French kiddos, hell, that you would see a role where the Mets would give up all these assets and then some for Skubal, which they can comfortably do because their farm is that good. If they lose guys like Tonin or Sproat, you don't lose too much sleep. Why? You got Will Watson. You got RJ Gordon. You got Jonathan Santucci. You got Jack Weniger. You got Christian Scott returning from reconstructive Tommy John surgery. And you got Noah McClain leading the helm. The Mets are going to be fine on the pitching front for years to come. I'm very excited for their farm. I really am. And you should be too. But they are not at all in any world imaginable going to give up those assets without having the full utmost confidence that they will do everything in their power to extend this man long term, more than likely before opening day. Now, could this be a near identical situation to what the Red Sox did with Garrett Crochet a year ago? Make the blockbuster trade happen when the Mets were the runner-up. They just couldn't land him because the Red Sox had a better farm at the time. Have to respect tip of the cap. Red Sox have been great with their player development, and they're in an eerily similar situation, the Mets, to certain degrees. But the Mets are in a better position now to trade for Skubal than, say, they would be at this point in time, for the most part at least. But the point is, if they get him, they will extend him. And the reason why I'm so confident in this is because Scott Boras, believe it or not, has actually had an appetite to do extensions over the years. He doesn't do them overly often, but he has done them. And the Mets are an exception when you have literally the wealthiest owner in baseball by a large margin as a majority owner in baseball. And oh yeah, are we just going to forget the fact that a year ago, Juan Soto inked the largest contract in not just baseball history, North American sports history under Steve Cohen? Yeah, you mean to tell me that Scott Boras is going to have a greater appetite to make sure Skubal hits the market instead of having the Mets still unload the dump truck of money north of $400 million on the 10-plus year contract? Come on. You can live in La La Land, that's fine, but I'm living in reality. I'm paying attention. I'm paying close attention to why, if the Mets do this, they are not doing this without the expectation of that. And what is that? That is a long-term extension for Tarek Skubal. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I know I'm being a smart aleck with this one, but I've talked so extensively about Tarek Skubal throughout the course of the offseason, yet I know I will get the comments down below, Wardy, I don't want to give up the assets for it. And listen, that's fine, but when the Mets, again, do not get as far as as we want them to next year because they did not meet the mark on their offseason acquisitions, because they cannot do enough with their rotation, you can come back to me after Skubal has yet another dominant season as the best starting pitcher in baseball and remind me how much you were right, because obviously you'll be sarcastic because I'll be far from the truth. The point stands to everybody. There are many pitchers available in the market, from the free agent to the trade market. The Mets are primarily positioned to land 2 starters. In order to do so, you have to trade away Kodai Senga. Why? Senga has the most trade value out of the current guys that they would be willing to trade of veterans between himself, Clay Holmes, David Pearson, Shamanai, etc. And secondly, by doing that, you open up the door for actual rotation room. That way, you can both trade for a starter of quality and sign a starter of quality. That's why there is a world where the Mets would say sign Framber Valdez or Michael Cain or a Tatsuo Imai and trade for one of those other pitchers that we relayed that's available in the trade market. If Skubal is truly available the way that it appears to be increasing by the second as we get set for winter meetings in Orlando, I promise you the New York Mets will be right at the tippity top of the list to try to make that move happen. Not only has this been constantly relayed from Jeff Passan, only the most credible reporter in baseball currently of ESPN, but this has been relayed from everyone, their mothers, saying how who's the best fit to lend to Tarik Skubal is obviously the New York Mets. And that's an awesome thing to say. Massive credit to Stearns and this entire organization on how greatly they have built this farm each of the past couple of years. Shout out to Billy Epler, who certainly helped as well to varying degrees when he was here as well. So this has been a collective effort to get to where the Mets are now, but this is what the Mets have been building for. This is the Dodgers way, to flex your guns with your assets in the farm while also balancing that with what you have in your spending ability. That is how you build winners the way that the Dodgers have won. Otherwise, we will continue to, at minimum, be in second place of LA, if not all the way maybe down to 10th, 15th place, because who knows if this team will even make playoffs. The jury's still out there. You got to go ahead and add star pitching. There are stars out there, but no one is a more surefire guaranteed thing than what you're getting than Tarik Skubal. Don't believe me? Let me remind you just how damn good this guy is, okay? Let's just take a look at, the best numbers in baseball. 100%, and this is out of 100, meaning if you're 100, you're the best in baseball. If you're 0, you're the worst. 100th in pitching run value, 98th in fastball run value, 80th in breaking run value, 100th in off-speed run value. And Skubal's already had Tommy John multiple times in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a belief that he should hopefully, God willing, be able to give you longevity over a longer-term deal entering now his age 30 season. He just turned 29, so apologies if my graphic is slightly off there on the age. He must have just had his birthday. Either way, 95th percentile in expected ERA, 86th in expected batting average, 91st in fastball velocity, sits at 97, 98 consistently, north of 100 plus. Average exit velocity, 97th. 97th in chase percentage. 92nd in whip percentage. 94th in K percentage. 97th in walk percentage. 95th in hit percentage. League average in barrel percentage, ground ball percentage, and extension. He's league average in barrel, even while he's the most consistently hard thrower among starters in baseball. He has a changeup that he threw more often than not last year, 31% of the time, 100 plus strikeouts, 88 miles per hour is where he sits on it. Four seam, 29% of the arsenal, sits 98 or so. Sinker, 24% of the arsenal, sits 97 plus. Slider, 12% of the arsenal, 90 plus. Curveball, 3% of the arsenal, 81 miles per hour or higher. He has everything that the Mets need right now. And maybe that didn't sell you. Okay, you know how I said I don't need to sell you, but I know some of you guys still aren't bought in. Okay, let's focus on the following. Tarik Skubal, since returning from injury from the 2023 season where he only pitched 80 innings, where he still dominated a 2.8 ERA and a 2.3 expected ERA. Bulldog, 2024, 192 innings, just under 11 K per nine, and 1.6 walks per nine, a .7 home run rate, and we're looking at a 2.39 ERA and a 2.7 expected ERA, 6-4 season. His best season just happened in 2025. 195 innings, over 11 K per nine, 1.5 walks per nine, .8 home run per nine, which, mind you, he'd be pitching in a pitcher's park half the year at Citi Field. Might even get better. 2.2 ERA, 2.7 expected ERA, 6.64 season. What else do I need to say to you? Okay, you're either for Tarik Skubal and you understand the value of him, you understand the Mets' adamancy to extend him, you understand that the Mets can sacrifice the farm because the farm is so deep it wouldn't hurt them as much as you think, and they will of course churn out great talent in the upcoming draft and so on and so forth. Or you are in the other category, which is that no matter what I say, you're not for giving up quality assets for a rental starter. And to each and every one of those fans, that is fine, but we are never, and I mean never, going to see eye to eye on this. And I will continue to keep my foot down until proven otherwise. Now, That's enough Tarik Skubal talk. We're 20 plus minutes in, but I had a lot to say about him if you couldn't tell. Now let's talk about the polar bear, because this is interesting to me. Very interesting. A couple things we're going to highlight regarding Pete Alonso in this one. And let me go ahead and let's get rid of the Skubal numbers. Let's bring up our home run king and his numbers, and let's take a look at the following here. All right, guys, buckle up. Get ready for this. Per Gordo, who covers like all things Red Sox on X, kind of like what I do, but for the Mets, but I don't believe he's a content creator. And if he is, I apologize. I just don't know him too well. Pete Alonso's told friends that the Red Sox are high on his list, according to reporting out of the Boston Globe. And that article was officially linked down below from this post that you guys can check out on X, should you guys have interest, right here. Baseball warms up for winter means, and all the details there. So, supposedly, Alonso's told his friends that he has the Red Sox high on his list. Doesn't shock me. Why? Alonso doesn't have a big market, everybody. And the Red Sox have been linked to Alonso for a while now, as we've seen reporting come out just over the past 40 to 72 hours that the Red Sox love Alonso and do, in fact, view him as, to a degree, a top priority this offseason. Like, he is towards the top of the list for them, and he apparently has the Red Sox towards the top of his list. So, furthermore, we do have a piece that came out from Joel Sherman of the New York Post. A big part of the Mets-Yankees offseason is determining how improved the markets for Alonso Bellinger are with no qualifying offer and off to strong platform years. So he did talk a little bit about Belly in this one, but nothing that you guys, don't really already know. The Mets love Bellinger. The only new news regarding Bellinger that maybe you didn't know is the fact that the Mets were the runners-up actually for Bellinger last offseason if they weren't bringing Alonso back. So the Mets were planning to fully pivot to Bellinger in a trade with the Cubs if they were not able to bring Pete Alonso back. So that appears to be another circumstance where the Mets, we know they've liked Bellinger for a while, but they clearly have liked him for over a year now, which is telling that goes in hand with their current evaluation of him at this point in time. I do firmly believe that in a role where the Mets allow Pete Alonso to walk, Cody Bellinger is the guy that they will likely replace him with between the outfield and the infield until proven otherwise. Now, obviously, Bellinger's market can be very fickle. Him on a longer-term deal north of $150 million, stayed in this article, some people just think is kind of asinine for how inconsistent he's been in recent years. He's declined with his center field defense, even though he's still very much proficient at what the Mets would need at the moment, and someone who can comfortably handle left without a problem and comfortably handle first. That's why I want Bellinger. He's a plus bat. At worst, even if he's league average, his versatility is so proficient. He's a home run king. He's a guy who knows how to win in big markets. He's been here, he's done that. He's a World Series champion. He's got the resume that you're looking for. You just don't necessarily want him too long-term, and I understand that argument. But for Pete Alonso, there's something very important to note in this that I'd like to share. It is as follows, and I quote, "An AL official said the following: I don't think length is out there for Alonso, a veteran agent offered. And I quote, no one is giving him 5 years. He would be lucky to get 4, and that will likely come with lower average annual value and a whopper of deferred dollars. Boris, though, said that beyond the strong season and no qualifying offer, the industry is hungering for righty power, which is inaccurate. This is his sell job, because it is abundantly clear the industry is not loving Alonso in similarity to a year ago, and I'll expand on that in a second as to why that is. The industry is hungering for righty power. That Alonso's strong upgrade in areas such as exit velocity and hard hit rate was impressing suitors, and that teams like his excellent scooping ability and want him at first base so they could benefit of his bat there, plus a DH. See, Alonso's a great scooper. You could argue the best in baseball, but Alonso has to scoop constantly because he's had incompetent guys throwing him at the hot corner, especially when Vientos has been out there. And most importantly, that is one little thing to give him a tap on the shoulder, like, good job, kiddo, when everything else tells you Alonso's a very bad defensive first baseman, because he is. I watched him have the yips trying to make simple underhand tosses at first in game-deciding decisions. Game-deciding moments throughout the course of the summer, as well as looking like Lucas Duda trying to throw it home. And I know I'm not trying to cue too many flashbacks, but the point still stands. Alonso's not a good first baseman defensively, and that isn't changing. And that will likely hold true moving forward in his career, even if he continues to work on it, which is why him at DH is so important. And speaking more of DH, he said, though, that yes, Alonso would do more DHing for the Mets if they desired that to improve run prevention, which is exactly what they would be desiring. So let's start from the top here, okay? We're hearing official words from AL officials that they do not believe that Alonso will be getting the years. It's one thing to hear from officials in the industry like this in an article where it's kind of vague, a little broad as to where it's coming from. It's another when I can tell you in confidence from people who I've spoken to in the industry that the market is shaping up so similar to last year, it's not even funny. And the interesting thing about this is that when you look at the first base market, it's really not that deep. So why is it that Pete Alonso is yet again struggling to find the right suitor? Why is it that we saw reporting over this past week that he and Alex Bregman are yet again waiting for someone to step up? It's because A, this is the course of the offseason. A lot of things don't really pick up until we get to the winter meetings and onward. And B, being a Scott Boras client ain't for the faint of heart, okay? A lot of times Scott Boras is not going to steer you in the direction that you're looking for. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Boras notoriously handled Alonso's market terribly a year ago. He saw every single domino fall one by one by one by one. The Mets stayed, not the Mets. Alonso, from everything we knew, stayed stubborn on being a true first baseman and not wanting DH reps, and that really soured his market. That paired with a qualifying offer, meaning that teams that would have the luxury of signing him would have to give up, of course, draft picks and draft pick compensation. Teams don't want to do that for someone like Alonso, who's coming off of a very underwhelming 2024 season until Devin Williams gave him a pitch that he just smoked opposite field. And hopefully they're teammates next season now. Kind of crazy to say, but the point here stands. Alonso has a shrunken market, even without the qualifying offer a year later, because the market just is not in favor of player profiles like him that are really fluctuating how they grade out when they get into their 30s. How many times have we seen top sluggers, especially guys who thrived in the late 2010s in the juice baseball era, get no marketability whatsoever, even when they had consistent track records of home run rates, because they lacked defensive value at first base, because there were concerns as to how they would grade out as they get older. I'm not at all concerned with Alonso as to how he will look as he ages, as long as he's DHing at least a good chunk of the time. If Alonso's a full-time first baseman, massive discussion we had as to how well he's going to grade out in the next couple of years with not only his availability, because we know he's been Iron Man, he's played every single game for the most part every single season. We love that about him. That's important and value him in that sense. But what's also true is that teams just do not care for profiles like him as much as you think. There will continue to be a larger contingent of teams that have a greater interest and need for top lefty bats in the market than righties. And maybe we will reach a point in the next couple of years where that changes based on maybe how heavy of a righty bat market it is versus a lefty bat market. Of course, the shape up of these markets goes in hand with the value of the players and how they're perceived by opposing clubs. But Alonso is currently in a position where if he wants to stay stubborn on wanting 7 years, he's going to find himself yet again in January and then February inking back with the Mets on a short-term high AV contract. And from everything that I've heard, including people directly connected in the Mets organization right now, is that the Mets would love Alonso back, but just like last offseason, they want him back at their price. They do not want to differ away from, say, 3 or 4 years or so, and that is currently the belief that is holding true. So much so that when we see the following, again, to see that quote there from the veteran agent that no one is giving him 5 years, he would be lucky to get 4, and that will likely come with a lower AAV and a whopper of deferred dollars. So the point stands. Alonso, as things currently look, is going to get a contract of 3-4 years and more than likely not more at this point in time. Why? Because not a lot of teams need a Pete Alonso type. A lot of teams already have first base figured out, and a lot of teams already have DH locked down, which is why when you look at his market right now, you think of the Boston Red Sox because they would love to kick Tristan Casas to the curb. They are probably fed up with Tristan Casas to a degree the Mets are with Kodai Senga, a guy who has plenty of talent, but Casas hasn't proven himself as much, and he hasn't been healthy each of the past 2 years. They're done. They're fed up. If they can get rid of him, they're going to get rid of him. That's the belief in the industry right now. But Alonso is a fascinating situation because the Red Sox are a team that, again, supposedly really likes him, and he supposedly really likes the Red Sox, but we don't know to what degree. And if the Red Sox are high on his list, you don't think the Mets are high on the list too? Of course they are. I mean, what are we doing here? The Mets, the Red Sox, one team that I'm really curious if they swoop in out of nowhere is the Texas Rangers, because the Rangers have some guys that we know that he loves, and Nemo, DeGrom, and others. And they're kind of more focused on this being a retool to make themselves better for next year. And they're going to splash on one big name. I could see Alonso being that guy, and I could see Alonso being like, oh, less taxation to worry about. I get it being a nice homer-friendly park half the season. Yeah, I'll go to Texas. I could definitely see that happening. But if that doesn't happen, if it is in the Boston Red Sox, there's one other team that sticks out like a sore thumb to me that I'm more concerned about by the second. And you guys aren't going to like to hear this. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. You really think the Philadelphia Phillies won't put a valiant effort in for Alonso in a world where Schwarber goes elsewhere? Regardless of if Schwarber lands with the New York Mets. If Schwarber's gone, that opens up the floodgates for them at DH and also can increase the likelihood of taking less defensive reps in for Harper at first so he can get some days off and be solely at bat at DH. Harper's in his mid-30s now. He's not getting any younger. So I'm sure there's an adamancy from Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies to stay as a top contending team, but to get creative in what they do. Yes, Alonso, from everything that I know, does in fact like Philly. And he likes Philly, I'm sure, more in the sense of, A, he wouldn't really have to change much location for him and his family. He would still be going to spring training right around the same area there in Florida. And B, he would be in a batter's park. No, Alonso has thrived at Citi Field, but he is by no means in a homer-friendly ballpark. If he, say, played the next 3-4 years in Philadelphia, his numbers might be the most pronounced that they've been since his rookie year of 50-plus bombs here that we saw in 2019 with the juice baseballs. Wouldn't shock you. Schwarber just had 56. You think Alonso wouldn't have similar success? I got a bridge to sell you. And the idea of him platooning in a DH first base role with a Harper makes more sense the more I talk about it, which is what concerns me genuinely that could come to fruition. So yes, Alonso's market is absolutely shrinking. It has shrunk. It is not nearly as big as we thought. And it's not as much the fact that Alonso came off of a bad season, because you could rightfully argue Alonso just had his best overall season he's ever had in his career. I will put my foot down on saying that's true. I was very impressed with what Pete Alonso did for the Mets this past season. The numbers back it as well. Very good offensive year. Was batting like .350 the first month and a half or so. Was consistently the most clutch hitter for the Mets all season long from April all the way to the end of the year with runners in scoring position. Yes, he had his struggles just like any other top slugger would. And yes, Juan Soto was the more clutch hitter from August on. But collectively, who was the most consistent at their job? It was Pete Alonso. 96th percentile in batting room value, horrendous in base running and fielding. We know he's horrendous. Again, 2 percentile in defense at first base. He's literally amongst the worst defensive first basemen in baseball. Yeah, okay, go ahead and try to sell me on how that's completely not the case. I'm relaying the numbers. I watched every single game. I haven't missed a single game Pete Alonso has played since he made his debut in 2019. I like to think I at least have a grasp as to how he handles his defensive game. There are things I like about his defense, there are things I don't like about his defense. And unfortunately for him and for the Mets under David Stearns, the lack of defense is far outweighing what he does that is good. Even with the great offense. Apologies as audio just ran on my phone, not on my phone, just on my computer for 1 second. I think Fangraphs had a pop-up of an ad. Regardless, everybody, look at these numbers just for a second. 96th percentile in batting room value. 96th in XWOBA. 88th in expected batting average. 98th in expected slugging. 97th in average exit velocity. 98th in barrel percentage. 96th there that we see in 96 that we see in hard hit percentage, 85th and sweet spot. Why do I keep having audio pop up, everybody? Just give me 1 second so I can delete some tabs to try to get rid of this, because you may not hear it, but my computer's just in and out, just playing some audio just to be a pain in the neck for me. And I have a feeling it's also coming from this, which I need to use right now. So we'll go back to Fangraphs in a second, but to talk a little bit more here on these numbers, 91st in bat speed, 85th in sweet spot, 96th in hard hit percentage. For comparison, look how he looked in 2024, guys. Not nearly as strong. A lot less consistent. But what was consistent? He ain't good defensively. 2023 is the only defensive season that he was actually somewhat solid defensively. He was 45th percentile, right around league average defensively. Hasn't been that since. He's fallen off a cliff since. And look at his bat that year. Dealing with the Charlie Morton injury that hit him on the thumb, was out a couple weeks, played through it, didn't look good, only batted .217, had 46 home runs, but a lot of them were in garbage time after the Mets sold at the deadline. So there's an asterisk there. 2022. Again, solid numbers for Alonso, but not as good as his past season. 2021. See the trend, guys? He's been fairly consistent. 2019 was amazing, but even then, look at 2019. 2025. He had a great year. A great year. And when you look at Alonso's consistency, this man has stayed healthy. That's why you love him. 152 games, 160, 154, 162, 162 again. And yes, it's ads from Fangraphs. I cannot stand the fact that they just have ads that randomly play audio like this, so I'll be quick. But he's a lock to give you north of 40 home runs every single year. And he's a lock to bat right around between 20 and 40% above league average as a batter. This past season, he was 41% above league average, but throughout his career, he's right around 30% above league average. A lot to love about Pete Alonso. I want the home run king back. I know you guys do too. But the Mets are not going to bet again. They are not going to bid against themselves in a way that they might do for Edwin Diaz. They're not going to do it for Pete Alonso. And because of that reason, we may find ourselves yet again another offseason where Pete Alonso does not make a decision until after we get to the new year. And when that happens, then things start to get really dicey, because then what did the Mets do by then? Schwarber's likely off the market by then. So how much focus do they have on him? How much leverage does he have on the Mets versus Mets having on him? It really feels like, until we see something to suggest otherwise, and of course reporting can change that in the coming days, so we will see. I might have a complete different opinion on this a couple days from now, if not tomorrow, depending on what is relayed in the media. But everything that we know at this point is that Alonso's market is yet again shrunk. A lot of teams don't need him. There are some teams that would love him, but even those teams that would love him kind of have a hard line in the sand as to how far they're willing to go this offseason, including the Boston Red Sox. There is not a world, as of now, that the Red Sox would bring back Alex Bregman and sign Pete Alonso. It's more than likely going to be one or the other should they go down that route. How much does Alonso want the Red Sox over, say, the New York Mets? Maybe he doesn't want them over the Red Sox, over the Mets at all. Maybe he just has them towards the top of his list because he knows they're an active suitor and will actually help his value right now. So until we find out that breaking, Red Sox are signing Pete Alonso, or breaking, Red Sox are close to signing Pete Alonso, jury's still out as to where he'll land this offseason, but I do believe should he return to the Mets, it is going to be more inclined of what they want on 3 years, maybe with a fourth-year option, respectable average annual value, not far off from what he's currently getting, and that be that. Pete wants a long-term deal. Snooze, you lose, bud. You had a 7-year chance a couple years ago when the Mets offered you that extension. Yes, I know you didn't love it because you would have had to bought out the final year and a half of your contract or so before you're hitting the market. So it's more of like a 4.5, 5-year extension, but I'm sure he'd still probably want that in hindsight, considering the fact that we're looking at a Pete Alonso right now that may very well not get anything beyond 3 years yet again. So I definitely would love to know your opinions regarding Pete Alonso, what's happening with him this offseason, everybody. Like I said, until proven otherwise, I really do think this is going to be a similar statured situation as to what we had happen a year ago. But of course, everything regarding the polar bear, good, bad, or indifferent, we will cover here on the platform up until he makes his decision this offseason. All I got to say is, Scott Boras, let's see what you could do with this one, my guy. It was easy to work with Juan Soto as an elite player, but when you do this with players that are very good but not truly elite status, you have failed miserably a lot of the times. Let's see if you fail again, you swing and miss, or if you slam dunk a deal that no one, including myself, is currently expecting at this point in time. Now, before we get out of here, everybody, final thing I got to relay. Guys, we all know the Twins are incompetent, but they're even more incompetent than you could possibly fathom. I kid you not, not even a full day removed from our video on the Mets potentially trading for guys like Joe Ryan and Byron Buxton, in which they have interest in both those respective players. We have Ken Rosenthal, the Athletic, dropping early morning, December 5th. Twins plan to keep their stars. And then it is stated from people in the know in the industry that the Twins are not expected to trade guys like Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, and Byron Buxton because they plan to contend and compete in 2026. The same incompetent organization that traded away 10-plus players at the trade deadline this past year, the same team that traded away a core team leader in Carlos Correa for a bag of baseballs to go back to the Astros, the same Minnesota Twins ran organization that traded away 3 of their top relievers, and Griffin Jax, and Varland, and Jarren Duran, and not Jarren Duran, I apologize, the other Duran, the one that's with the Phillies now, sadly. They did all this because they're going to compete next year. Sure. The same Twins, like even when they had all those core pieces, even when they were thriving with what they built internally, can't even get past a simple wild card in the American League, a weak American League. But sure, go ahead and try to prove to anyone that's actually paying attention, including myself, that it's in the best interest of the Twins to not sell this offseason. I mean, there's incompetence and then there's stupidity. And I think if you blend them together, you get the front office of the Twins. Unfortunately, because they're ran by an ownership group that's right around middle of the pack in baseball with actual value that they have as an organization and as an ownership group, but are towards the last in baseball in spending. This is why the Dodgers become the Dodgers, because we have stupid organizations like the Twins not knowing how to properly operate. Because what do they prioritize more? They prioritize having just enough talent on their team to just get enough fans to buy in to sell those tickets for opening day, even though that half of them will be gone a couple weeks in the season, because the Twins yet again will do nothing. No one will be surprised when they do nothing. No one will be surprised when they don't win a championship yet again. No one will be surprised when they yet again do not have a deep playoff run, because they operate on the margins. But their ownership group rather pocket those dollars and get every last drop out of the diehard loyal fan base that they have to try to sell them that, oh, this is going to be our year, just to do nothing in the end. It's time that the Twins buck up, go in a full retool rebuild, build their core again, what they can do to the best of their abilities with abundance of assets, and even then, they still might not do it. So I'm not fully buying the notion that they're not selling. I think that this is a leverage game. This is exactly the kind of thing you relay in the media to up the offers from what they're currently getting. Otherwise, they're going to stay put. But Joe Ryan, Byron Buxton, Pablo Lopez, they may get you some butts and seats, sure, but they're not going to do anything beyond that for you. That is not enough to go anywhere. Royce Lewis is great, but can he go 2 seconds without collapsing with an injury the way that Byron Buxton famously does as well? Like, what's the play here, Minnesota? Because all I see is just you guys are beyond stupid, and maybe even more stupid than I could have possibly comprehended. So if this means that the Mets are not going to trade with the Twins in the end, that does shrink their trade market a bit, because the Twins have more than enough feasible assets for the Mets to really go all in on. And that's why until it is officially official that we have started opening day and the Twins have not traded anyone, I will still have to see it to believe it. I am calling BS to a degree on this reporting until proven otherwise. So Mets fans, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree or disagree with the Twins supposedly now saying, you know what, we're not going to trade any of the guys that we absolutely should trade because they're not going to be here long term? Byron Buxton, again, he has no trade clause. He's a loyal guy. I love that for him. But how much longer is he going to stay loyal when he knows he's going to be on a team that isn't going to go anywhere? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know all your thoughts down below. Thank you again all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the continued support. And I'll see you guys all here next time on WardyNYM tomorrow night, Sunday evening. Big live stream. Winter meetings. Buckle up. I'll see you guys then. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks.